As Lisa said, I am the coordinator for academic integrity initiatives for the College of Arts and Sciences. Academic integrity as a field is a pretty large now and growing. And because of that, I can't cover everything that you're going to need to know for every different kind of course that you're going to be teaching while you're at the university. I can't cover all of that in 30 minutes. In fact, I have slides, and I can't even cover all of those in 30 minutes. So, but you have them in your notebook as reference. I tried to make them intuitive so that you could get some information from the slides if we have to skip some. And you also have my email address right there on the front, okay? So, two different things to juggle. So, the first set of slides just deals with what is academic integrity. It's important to talk to your students about academic integrity, and I'm providing you with a few slides at the front that may give you some language that you can use to talk to your students. I'm not going to read all of these definitions to you, which is why I put them on the slides. The university is a member of the International Center for Academic Integrity, has been for about 10 years, and they have a good deal of resources on their website that may fit your particular question or your particular situation. The URL is on the slide, so I recommend that you go there and look to see what kinds of information they have. They may have something that fits the particular kind of course that you teach and some good advice. So if you find that useful, please do use that. But they do give you some language that you can use to talk to your students, and you should talk to your students early and often about academic integrity, about academic honesty, about avoiding plagiarism and how to do that in your particular class. And there's some language here: responsibility, trust, honesty, respect, fairness, even courage, that you can use as you decide how you're going to broach this subject and how you're going to talk to your students about it. I'm also giving you here university's academic honor code and the academic honor pledge with the URL, so that if you need that, that's where you go to find it. Go over these with your students. A lot of people put it on their syllabus, and you need to have it on your syllabus, but a lot of people just say, when they're going over this on the first day of class, yeah, and you know not to cheat, right? And students they do know they're not supposed to cheat, but they don't always know what that means. And so it's a really good idea to go over the academic honor code, to go over the honor pledge, to put it on your syllabus, and maybe even to put them on each assignment sheet that you hand out. Research shows that students are less likely to cheat if they have read the academic honor code right before they do a task, because it's fresh in their minds and they're thinking about it. So that's a free tip. I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, also the Capstone Creed. The Capstone Creed is a student-created statement of values that students will sign at convocation. Convocation this year is on Tuesday of next week, and all the incoming freshmen will gather together and sign the honor pledge. It's a big deal. If you're teaching students who are not first-year students, they will have done this in previous years as well. So I always put the Capstone Creed and the Academic Honor Code on my syllabus, because one is student-generated, and it's easy to talk to students about something that students created, a set of values that are important to them as students. Okay, I keep going too many slides, sorry. So this is an academic integrity statement from the University of Illinois and another one from Kennesaw State. Why in the world am I showing you those when I just said I don't have enough time to cover everything that's on my slide? It's not even related to the University of Alabama. This is something I do. I teach freshmen mostly writing. This is something I do. These happen to be 2 honor codes or language about academic integrity that I've researched on the internet and I happen to like. I like the way they're worded. And so this is my very first assignment on the first day of classes for my students in my writing class. Early first week assignment, I give them a photocopy of all of the stuff that I've just shown you, the university's Capstone Creed and the Honor Code and the Honor Pledge, and I give them 2 more. You can ask them to find 2 more themselves and do a little research, talk about research early in the semester and internet research. I just give them to the students because I particularly like the way these are worded. One of the first assignments I give my students is an etiquette assignment, how to write an email to your professor, because if you don't teach them that when they're freshmen, you will get, hey, yo, teach, and the email is not signed, and the email address is sexystud69, and you have no clue which class the student's in, and you don't want to know which student it is, and you don't really know what they want because they said, hey, yo, teach. So the very first assignment I give, and you don't have to be an English teacher to do this assignment, is I teach them how to write an email, how to write a professional email to me as their teacher. And I combine this with my academic integrity assignment. I give them all of those honor codes and honor pledges to read for homework, and then I ask them to send me a professional email in which they explain what academic integrity is, what it means to them, and how it's going to affect their performance in my class. So now I've done 2 things at once. I've talked about academic integrity. I've given them the agency to learn about it on their own, and I've had them send me a professional email at the same time. Homework, one fell swoop. And I get the emails in advance of class, and I can read through them, and it gives me now a platform to start a class discussion based on what they have told me. So people always say I'm uncomfortable talking with my students about academic integrity because I always feel like they think I'm accusing them of cheating when they haven't, I don't even know them yet. But this kind of an assignment gives you a platform for doing that. Okay? So that's just an idea. There are a lot of other ways to do it. Okay. So let's look at, can you hear? I feel like this is not really picking me up. Let's talk about some statistics about student cheating. The International Center for Academic Integrity data, and they have been doing these surveys of colleges all across the United States, hundreds of them. They have thousands, hundreds of thousands of responses over the last 15 years. So these are really pretty rich surveys. And those surveys tell us that 65 to 75% of undergrads admit to cheating in college at least one time. 19 to 20% admit to cheating at least 5 times. Now that's 20%, right? That's 1 in 5 cheat regularly, okay? We hear, oh, everybody's doing it, everybody's cheating, but that's really, I think, a small number. I think it's a large number who cheat one time, but think about your freshman experience. And, you know, that sort of changes the numbers. 62% of undergrads admit to cheating on writing assignments at least once. And this data does not include first-year students, it does not include honor code schools, and it does not include 2-year schools. So this is a survey of upperclassmen who are more seasoned students. Okay. So, and it does not include first-year students. How many of you know already that you're going to be teaching first-year students? This does not include first-year students because first-year students are going to test the waters. They're going to see what the boundaries are, and it's going to be up to you to help them understand where those are, so that they don't fall then into the 19 to 20% who cheat again. Largely with first-year students, you're going to find that a lot of their poor decisions about academic integrity stem from time management issues. They've got this wonderful world open to them, and yes, we want them to go out and experience all of it, but they don't have to experience it all in the first 2 weeks. And these are things that you will find that you need to talk with first-year students about time management. You might need to help them a little more than you think you would with how to pace their assignments, doing their homework, those sorts of things. You might have to sit down and talk to 1 or 2 people who are getting behind so that they don't get in a situation toward the middle or the end of the semester where they make a poor decision that is going to be costly. Largely, first-year student plagiarism is unintentional. They think they're not cheating. They may have been told or they may have misunderstood that whatever it is that they're doing is okay. And so we're going to talk in a little while about things that you can do in your classroom to help them understand exactly what they need to be doing and what they don't need to be doing. And that's kind of where you come in, is to help them over that unintentional plagiarism hurdle. Okay? So, you would think that all you had to do is be the stern parent and shake your finger in their face and say, "Don't cheat and I mean it," and they will not cheat. You would think that if you say, "If you cheat, you will be expelled," they will not cheat. But research shows us that the threat of punishment and actually getting caught and being punished does not deter academic misconduct. It does not deter cheating, because threats, the reality of punishment, don't seem to matter as much as whatever it is that has driven their decision to cheat. Whatever it is that is internal, that is driving their decision, outweighs anything you will tell them in advance about what's going to happen. If they are goal-oriented enough that they just want to win the prize, they want to be noticed as the best student, if that is their internal motivation, then no fear of punishment is going to deter their bad decisions. Also, for some students, punishment seems an acceptable risk. I may not get caught, and so I'm going to do this anyway. Okay, so if punishment does not work, let me go ahead and say before we move on, my background is in first-year writing. I was the director of first-year writing here for 13 years. I've seen a lot of first-year students, and I've seen a lot of plagiarized papers. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about deals with how to help students with their writing. But I do want to say that I'm not unaware that there are other forms of cheating. You all are going to be teaching a whole lot of different kinds of courses. You're going to run into students who copy computer code. That's kind of a second largest source of cheating on this campus. You're going to run into students who are geniuses on the computer, and they have somehow gotten into the publishing company's hidden online materials, and they have secured the answer key to the workbook that you're using in your class. And suddenly 15 students are going to turn in worksheets that have the exact same wording on all the answers. And there are ways that you can prevent that. One is not using those standardized books, but having students write things that you have provided for them to do rather than what the book has provided for them to do. This is kind of the newest trend in student cheating. There are even students now who are using online translators like Google Translate, especially students in foreign language classes. They're using Google Translate. to translate their foreign language passages into English. And this is weird to me, but there's a thing now called reverse translation. Do you know what that is? Where students they're given an assignment to write an essay on a topic, and they go and they find an essay that's written originally in a foreign language, and they run it through Google Translate and translate it and turn in the translation. Turnitin doesn't catch stuff like that. So it catches it after the first time it's turned in. But so I'm not unaware that there are other kinds of cheating. I'm going to focus with you on some things that you can do in your classroom no matter what you teach. And also I'm going to talk a little bit about writing, because most of you will probably be having your students do some kind of a writing assignment. Okay? So let's talk about that. So what does work, what causes cheating, and what works to prevent it. So the general conditions for cheating, and most of this material comes from a book by James Lang called Cheating Lessons from Harvard in 2013. It's a fabulous book. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it that you put it on your Kindle wish list and read it. It's an easy read, and it's really smartly written. So what does cause cheating? A strong emphasis on winning. If students are focused on performance rather than on mastery, they are more likely to cheat. If they are going all out to do one thing really, really well, and they're focused on that one thing rather than on learning the material so that they will know it for life, they are more likely to cheat. Also, if there is a high stake riding on the outcome, for instance, if there's one exam for the entire course and that's 100% of their grade, they're much more likely to cheat, because that's a lot of pressure on a student to have one thing count so much. Also, and this is the biggie, if they are externally motivated rather than intrinsically motivated. In other words, if they want the credential, if they want the diploma as the sign that they've learned something in college, that they're college educated, rather than that they actually have studied and worked hard and actually learned something in college, they're more likely to cheat. We've found that students who are intrinsically motivated, who just love learning because they love learning, they love to read because there are books, and they are motivated by the joy of learning, those students are less likely to cheat, because they want to know the stuff. No matter what the course is, they want to know the stuff. Okay? There are some students who consider college sort of like a trade school. And if, I hear this all the time in English, well, I'm going to be an engineer. It's not important for me to learn how to write. Really? In your own language? That's not a priority for you? I'm going to be a biologist. I'm going to be a doctor. I'll have a secretary who can write for me. This is not an important class to me. You will hear your students say this to you. It's not an important class to me. The less importance a student puts on a class, or the more impossible a class seems to a student, the more likely they are to cheat. And also peer pressure, the fifth thing that will cause students to cheat. If they perceive that there are other people in your class who are cheating, then they are more likely to cheat. In other words, when getting the win or getting the grade or getting the credential becomes more important than the personal satisfaction of learning and doing your best, even if your personal best is not the best in the class, when that is a factor, when the task seems unimportant or the desired outcome seems impossible, and when students have a perception that other people around them are cheating, then they're more likely to cheat. So, my hope is that some of this will help you generally, since we all teach different subjects, and students have different opportunities to cheat, intentionally or unintentionally. Yikes. Thank you. So what can we do? It's important to start thinking about academic misconduct as an environmental issue. We can't control what students do. They come to our classes as separate entities from us. They have their own thought processes and their own drives and desires and goals and that sort of thing. We can't control anything about them. What we can control is the environment we create for them to learn in. So the focus now in academic integrity is to change the learning environment. And I'm going to talk with you, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit, but I'm going to talk with you about some of the things that we can do. One of those is to foster intrinsic motivation. And I've given you some lists of things that you can do in your classes that will help you to have an environment where students feel like they're interested in the material and they really want to learn the material. They're less likely to cheat when they're motivated to learn your material. So one way is to help them develop that. One way is to make a personal connection with them, to talk with them about why you're excited to teach the class, to make the class personal, have a personal connection with your students and help them understand why it's an important class, even if they don't think English is important. It's important to talk with them about why it is. Encourage learning for mastery, and I've given you some ideas here about how you might do that. Remember, and the last one's the most important, remember that learning comes from practice, and so it's important as you plan your syllabus that you don't just have assessments at the end, that you set up opportunities for your students to practice doing those tasks. That way they're not such high-stakes tasks, they have an opportunity to practice the learning, okay? Also lowering the stakes. Putting in more assignments, that means more work, but it also means more learning for your students. So not just one test at the end, maybe a practice test and a test, maybe 3 or 4 tests, maybe break the material up. But the lower the stakes, the less likely students are to cheat. And I've given you some ideas for assignments that help with memory retrieval. Don't assume that your students, if you're teaching a writing assignment or any kind of assignment, don't assume that your students know how to do it. A lot of people say, okay, there's a paper due next week, and that's all you say, but here's the assignment. Students don't know how to write those kinds of papers if they've never had to write one before. If you give a writing assignment in your class, you need to be a writing teacher. You need to teach your students what you expect. You need to let them practice writing a thesis statement or practice writing a paragraph or something with your help so that they know how to do the task that you've asked them to do. Here's a slide about academic writing. Read over these and see if any of these might apply to your students, and if so, if you think they won't know these things, you need to talk to them about it. Most of us know these are wrong. Most students know they're wrong, but research tells us, and this is really important, and I'm going to skip over this because we don't have time. I got 2 minutes, and I'm really sorry about that. But this is some research that shows what students do when you ask them to write a research paper, where they're actually getting their material from. 47% of students paraphrase, and they paraphrase incorrectly because they've been taught or they think that paraphrasing is putting things in their own words, and they think that that means getting a thesaurus and taking out the big words and putting in other words in their places, and that's called patch writing, and it's still plagiarism because it retains the original writer's sentence structure and mostly vocabulary. Students don't know that's wrong. If you run across things like that, these are things where you're going to have to, in your learning environment, you're going to have to show them how to do these skills, okay? Can't expect the English department to do all the heavy lifting. If you're in the biology course, you know what kind of writing students need to be doing in biology, and the English department doesn't. So it's part of your responsibility to create an environment where they know how to write in your course. Evidence shows that students are 46% of citations in English research papers come from the first page of a source. What does that tell you? They're not reading it. They're quote mining. They're looking at the material and they're finding things. So you need to practice with your students how to write a research paper if you're having them write a research paper. Helping them, holding their hand, guiding them through these things will help them to prevent making mistakes that will be costly because they're unintentionally plagiarizing because they don't know any better. Okay? So, again, I'm going to skip to the end, and I'm really sorry. I didn't time this very well. But help them learn how to love your class, essentially. Okay? And there's suggestions on how to do that here. Okay, so just some final common sense advice. There's 2 slides of common sense advice on things that you can do in your syllabus to personalize the course, to clarify what your students need to do. This is all really, really important. It's important for you to take it seriously and to work with your students, to assume they don't understand this and you're going to have to help create this environment for them, okay? So there's some advice, some final cautions, and I do want to say this, sorry, 1 minute. A lot of the things that I've suggested in the slides will help you to create an environment that will help your students avoid plagiarism or academic misconduct. There's going to be a student occasionally who's just going to do it anyway. Please don't take that personally, okay? And if you happen to catch a student that you suspect of plagiarism, please, please, please find out in advance what the procedure of your college is for dealing with a situation like that and follow that procedure to the letter. Don't make deals with students. Follow the procedure for your own protection, okay? And don't take it personally, because 99% of your students are not going to cheat, especially if you create an environment where they feel comfortable with the learning, okay? And the last slide is just some resources that will help you. Again, I apologize for running out of time, and I've given you my email address. Please, please, please feel free to email me if you have any questions, okay? Thank you.